Hello, everyone, and welcome back to Inside Fine Art on thatchannel.com. My name is J Mac, and I have my second guest with me. His name is Stevnn Hall, and he is a mixed media artist, and he shows his work across Canada and in the U.S. Welcome to the show, Stevnn.
Thanks very much, Jay.
Now, I understand you are from Canada originally.
Yes, I'm from a very small town in Ontario. I'm a small town boy. I'm from a place called Johnstown.
Oh, where's that?
Yes, that's what everyone asks. It's about 300 people, and it's near Brockville, Ontario, which is right on the St. Lawrence River. So we have lots of meadows and pastures and bucolic farmland.
Oh, it sounds wonderful.
Yes,
As for a child, isn't it great?
I didn't think so at the time.
Oh, I see. Okay. I imagine when you were a teenager, it didn't.
Yeah,
it did?
No, not so much, right? Yeah, I was really aching to get out of my small town. I'm just very much situated to being a city boy. So I kind of just dreamed my entire childhood away, dreaming of being somewhere else.
I see.
That's kind of how that went.
And then you went to university in Montreal.
That's right. I went to Concordia University where I studied film. So I became really interested in theater and photography, and then that progressed to film. And so I went specifically to become a producer, a director, or an editor in film. And so made some short films and won a bunch of awards there. And then eventually ended up working in music videos and then working in television. I became a promo producer here in Toronto.
Oh, really? A City TV, was it?
It was at Chum.
CTV?
It was at Chum.
At Chum.
So I worked in a couple of different channels at Chum.
Uh-huh.
And then CTV bought us out.
Oh, I see. Okay.
And then that takes us basically up to about 3 years ago. I was working as a promo producer, making a lot of television commercials for shows, trying to get people to watch shows that I wouldn't tell my friends to watch. So I decided that I wanted to get out of promo producing, and I decided to, so the question became, what will I do? And so I kind of looked back to my childhood, where I was always very interested in art. And I decided to leave my job, my well-paying, job.
Oh yes.
And take on becoming an artist full time. So up until that point, I had been doing art part time on the side, after work, on the weekends, and when I could. And I had a few shows here and there. And at that point, previously, I guess I would have been in the arts community as a visual video artist, but I decided to just kind of jump off the diving board and become a full-time painter and photographer.
Oh, fantastic!
So that was a big risk for me. Yeah.
Oh, definitely. Well, let's take a look at your first piece here. We have a piece here, and it's called Reservoir. And tell me about it.
Sure. Well, you've chosen this piece. It's one of the first pieces I did. So I can maybe start by saying that my art has always kind of I've been more interested in kind of exploring themes of violence and different kinds of things, as we'll see later in my portraits. But it's interesting that I got involved in landscapes, and this pertains to this particular piece. This piece is taken in Brockville, which is where my parents lived. And what was happening around this time is both my parents suddenly became very sick.
Oh.
And so this landscape, this whole area, which I hadn't really been drawn to previously as a child, as I had kind of mentioned, when I went back to visit my mom and my dad when they were both unwell, suddenly this whole kind of, all the landscape, I was looking out the window, driving, down the roads in the car, and I just suddenly became really drawn to the skies and the meadows and the fields. This is an old pond in Brockville, and it's down this old dirt road. And so I just started to go around to all these places that I visited when I was a child and start to document them, and not having any real notion as to what I was going to do with the material. And I just started playing with it. And so my process is photography that I mount onto boards, and then I distress the work. I scratch it up. I just really kind of like play with the surface. I paint onto the surface. And there's inks, acrylics, oil paints, charcoal.
Oh, really?
All kinds, and I missed something there. Yeah, but all kinds of things on the top to create a built-up sort of visual play that draws us kind of further and further away from the fact that it's originally a photograph. So
yeah.
I'm trying to kind of create something else.
No, that is, well, you create a lot of depth with that.
Oh,
and
thanks.
then it's a very ethereal quality to these pieces. So, well, let's take a look at another one. And Gleaming Pole, and this is from 2008 as well.
So great. This is so on my way back to Brockville to visit my mom and dad, I would take the train. And so this was actually taken from I took a lot of my photographs from the train window.
Oh, did you really?
Including this one,
Uh-huh.
where I got kind of interested in the fact that there was an interplay between this moving landscape and the window of the train. So this big gleam, this big glow, and all of that kind of, all those reflections and little lights, that's all caught in the window of the sun hitting the window.
Oh, I see. Oh, okay. Now I understand what it is, of course.
So that's all occurring in the camera.
Uh-huh. And now, what kind of camera do you use?
When I was started off, so of course I was originally a 35 millimeter, but this is now digital. This would have been a Canon 20D, which is
Canon. All right.
Yeah,
Yes.
Canon all the way
Yes.
for me, and I now have
Uh-huh.
a Canon 5D, which is like a pretty sweet camera.
All right. Well, let's go on to the next piece, and this is amazing. And I believe I've shown this piece
You have?
before, because I had your dealer here, and this was one of the images that we showed.
Oh, you were
of
talking to
yours.
Jay from Muse
Jay,
Gallery.
yes, from the Muse Gallery.
Oh, that's great. Well, this is getting a little bit kind of bigger. Like it kind of has an expansiveness to it, and I really wanted to explore that sense of epicness. You know, there's that giant kind of plume in the background, and there's a lot of depth sort of in the foreground, all kind of creating some kind of spectacle. And so I'm interested in the idea of when I look at that, I see that there's kind of a merger between my interest in cinema. There seems to be, like, the cloud seems to be growing, like there seems to be movement for me, and I really want to capture that sense of wonder and movement and spectacle. To sort of like, it's kind of like how we have this as human beings, perhaps we have this collective response to nature and the majesty or the drama of nature. And so for me, that's what I see when I was working on this, what I was trying to bring out and what I was found to be capturing, what I was capturing.
Oh, yes. Well, I remember talking about the clouds. They're amazing.
Cool.
That I've never seen them like that.
It's really quite, I agree. So here I am. So it's like sometimes I'm out there in Brockville, and it's just like sometimes there's no clouds, and it's like, or they're wispy. But in this particular, a number of occasions, but this particular occasion, it was like magnificent.
Yeah, it's just incredible. Yeah. No, I just remember this piece. All right, let's go on to the next one. And winter?
This is called Winter Tree.
A winter tree.
It's good. And it's actually in the backyard of where my mom lived. And
oh, really?
Watching Jeopardy one night, my mother said, you know, that tree back there looks pretty cool, Stephen. Get your camera. You should go take a picture of it. And so I guess the lesson there is to always listen to Mom. I went back and took this picture. Yeah, it's just a magnificent tree, I think. And yeah, I love the way the branches have kind of become this tangle. I like that when you can't really tell, when you first look at some of my images, and this one is a good example, that you like where, like, there's a kind of a haziness or a fuzziness to it, where some of the branches kind of get lost. And you used the word, I think, ephemeral before.
Yeah.
And so it kind of creates that dreamy quality.
Yes, definitely. Well, we'll take a look at the next image, and Hallucination?
Cool. This is called Hallucination. This is at the base of Niagara Falls.
Oh, is it really?
So I was there a couple of years ago with my friend. Yeah.
Mm-hmm.
So you can see like these boulders. These are all boulders at the base of Niagara Falls. And when you look there, you can see that if you really look at this piece, on the right-hand lower corner, you can see there are birds flying around.
Okay.
Which suddenly gives you a sense of the scale of this. It's this giant waterfall, of course, it's Niagara Falls. And at the base, there are all these birds hovering around, these rocks getting caught up in the wind. And so I call it hallucination because it's hard to get the feeling at first that it's that big, right? And it kind of feels like, again, like a dream.
Yes, well, I was trying to figure out I didn't realize necessarily that it was Niagara Falls, and you can see that now. I didn't know whether you did that when you were working on it, scrubbing away at, now you work on you put your work on wood panels.
That's right.
You take it from film to paper?
So the exact process, I'll take the picture. Sometimes there'll be distortions in the actual image, like when I take pictures through the glass, or I've taken pictures through sunglasses, or tried to reflect the sun back into the lens, so I can create some kind of like effects right from the camera. I'll print that, put it onto a hard panel, so that it's on a hard surface. And then that's when I start to work on it.
I see. So you sometimes, because I did hear that you photograph and then you photograph it again and
that's
repeat
right.
it
until
you get the image that you want.
Right. So like a lot of these are starting off very small, like say 10 inches by 10 inches.
Yeah.
So and then I'll work up that surface. And it's interesting because if you think about something that's only this small, if you do gestural kind of work on it and start painting on it, your gestures are a relationship to your body size. Mm-hmm. So at this size, you can do these kinds of motions, but when you expand that, so if I'll take a picture of that and then blow it up, this particular piece is 60 inches by 60 inches, the gestures suddenly become gigantic. So they look a little bit otherworldly, like you can't really make those gestures at that size, right? So I think that's really interesting that work has this element to it. It's made small and then enlarged. And there's something a little bit off about the gestures, but I like that.
Yes. Well, I think they work. Well, look at the next one.
Cool.
And this one is Distance,
That's
called?
Right.
And it's from 2010. So this is with your contemporary camera now.
So at this point, that's right. It's with the 5D now. And at this point, I've started to take multiple photographs and then stitch them together.
I see. Okay. So
and
that's gave it that quality.
Yes. I guess. And it creates this kind of more of a vista, I guess, more of a panoramic. And I can capture little details in the work. Like there's a little farmhouse on the left there with an aerial. And so what I really like is that when you walk up to my pieces, you can start to see little figures and little details. Sometimes you can see little cars that you wouldn't notice at first from just looking at it. It's like you're overwhelmed by, or whatever, like there's big skies and so on. So you don't notice at first, at least I don't, you know what I mean? So little cars and stuff like that.
All the details that you
all
have
that
in
stuff,
it. Right,
which I think is really fun. And because I've taken it with multiple shots, there's a lot of clarity, right? Mm-hmm. So all of that stuff really blows up well.
Yeah.
So you can walk right into it.
Yeah. Well, yes. Now let's go to the next one. And now this is your figurative work, and this is Jim Cuddy.
So I actually started with figurative work. So the landscape stuff came after. So I was a painter first, and a photographer, and then everything got put together into my multimedia work. So I did this recently last summer, and for a TV show called Star Portraits. This is in fact Jim Cuddy from the band Blue Rodeo.
Yes. Now you are there with two other artists, and you're competing to do this portrait.
That's right. So it was really fun. So it's a show called Star Portraits, and just like you said. So there was a lot of suspense around this
I can
whole
imagine.
process.
Yes.
And it was really great. So we all had about 5 minutes each to take the photograph which we were going to work from.
Oh, you took a photograph that you were going to work from, because
So-
some of them, don't they just paint right away, or?
No, I don't. I'm not sure, but I don't think so. I think
Oh.
everyone is able to sketch. So we're in the room while, let's say, the celebrity is getting, in this case, Jim Cuddy is getting interviewed by the host, and we're all able at that point to take our sketchbooks out and start sketching him. But then at the end, I think most people work from the actual documentation.
Oh, I see. So they
have.
got the. But this is just for show.
Kind of, maybe a little practice.
Yeah,
I don't know if
okay.
anybody actually used it,
All right.
but it was fun.
Whoops! I mean, we let the cat out of the bag or something like that.
I got him to exactly let the cat out of the bag. I got him to stand up and start yelling at me. I wanted him to get really animated.
Oh yeah.
And so I said, "Would you do something for me? Would you stand up and pretend that there's a monster behind me, some really big monster, and I want you to yell at this monster?" And because what I wanted him to do is get really animated. And he said, "Sure, I'll do that." And he started to get, yelling and yelling. And I said, "I want you to yell at least 5 times." And so while he was doing that, I was taking these pictures. So he was actually yelling there. But when I was painting it, I decided that it really also looks like he's singing, right?
It does.
And
Yes,
so-
I thought that's what he was doing. Actually.
Great. Yeah. No. And he said, which was really a compliment. He said he chose mine, right? So I was.
Well, that's
he selected
wonderful.
mine,
So
which
he
was great.
has it in his collection.
Supposedly
correct?
he has it somewhere. Yep, in his
Yeah.
home somewhere,
Yeah.
perhaps, right? And he said to me, one of the reasons that I really respond to this piece and why I'm choosing it is because it's like you've caught me in a moment where I'm not, in the past, I'm not in the future. I'm caught in the present, engaged in what I'm doing.
Yes.
And I'm engaged in the moment. And I thought that was really a compliment.
Oh yes. Well, I think it works very well.
I mean, as an
Yeah.
artist, that's what we're all looking for.
Oh, yes.
To be
No.
in this thing called the flow, right? You want to
Uh-huh.
be in the moment. And
No, that works very well. We'll show you. We've got one more.
cool.
And Wounded Raphael.
So this is part of a larger series called my Wounded series.
Uh-huh.
And so I've taken a variety of images of men and put makeup on them. So in this case, red bloody makeup. And I'm really interested in exploring the themes of, wounds and how we're all scarred as we go through our lives. That if we're kind of up to something in our life, we've taken on conflicts and we've come out of it kind of battle weary, right? So we've got some kind of, in this case, kind of a representation of that battle. For me, is this blood and these wounds. And I became interested in kind of this also. I think it's kind of like a way of talking about the myth of the hero. Like there is something Joseph Campbell talks about, and how societies get collectivized through storytelling, and how the stories are about a hero and what the hero does, and the journey the hero goes on, and the battles and so on that he has, to kind of get to ethics, to talk about morals, to talk about how people could construct their life, right, and what to do in life. And so this is, for me, also a kind of a nod to Joseph Campbell, because it explores these mythic, heroic figures, these masculine men that are dealing with these assaults, but coming out either victorious, being caught in a moment, but also being caught in a moment of vulnerability. So they're taking it on, but they're also they have to put up a fight, and in that fight, there's doubt.
Yes.
There's conflict. There's drama, right?
Well, I'm sure I'd love to see the rest of the series or some
awesome.
of the other
Thanks.
pieces. Yes. All right, let's go to the next one now. You have a show coming up.
I do, and so this is one of the pieces in my show coming up at Muse Gallery. It opens on June 17th, which is next Friday, and fast approaching. And this is the largest piece I've ever done. It's called Burnt Offering, and the size is 60 inches by 72. And so the show is called Horizon. So you can see here this very clear horizon line. And as I look over my work, I've started to notice that I seem to be attracted to this straight, very crisp horizon line in the distance. And I started to be, and when I'm working on my pieces, I'm also very interested in how parts of them become abstracted. So, like there's kind of color fields. So there's this big color field above the line and a color field below the line.
Yes.
And in this case, there's even a color field kind of along the line where that orange is coming out.
Yes. Well, you inserted that orange, though, did you not, or was it there?
No, that's the sun coming up. It's
oh, really?
hour
Amazing.
In the morning.
Yeah.
It looked to me like this, because the sun is so red and kind of on fire. I called it burnt offering, as kind of what kind of came to me is this idea of how at a certain point in time we worship nature, like society, communities would worship nature.
Well, yes, because we don't see it.
That's right. But now it's all hidden in the buildings and whatnot.
I know. At least if we're in Toronto or New York or someplace like that. Yes.
It's absolutely true. And so, yeah, this is a clear, unobstructed view of nature. Where you're right. I mean, there is. So this could be back, I don't know, 1,000 years, I suppose. There's no indication it couldn't be. Particularly, I mean, from the vista. So I kind of got the sense of that largeness, like that. I mean, at one point, and maybe it's true that we believe that, like there's this power in the sky, and God's, that nature is God's, right? And so burnt offering is kind of like the sacrifice to the gods, right?
Yes.
But it's more like an appreciation, like to nature, to the beauty, the magnificence, the splendor and power, right, of nature. And I really saw that in this piece.
Yes, no, it's amazing. Well, let's look at another one of your nature pieces.
Cool. It's called Autumn Pond, and this is, again, interestingly enough, coming back full circle to the very first piece we saw, which was called Reservoir. This is the same pond exactly in Brockville.
Oh, is it really?
On that old dirt road.
Amazing.
But this is a little bit further on, so you can kind of see that this has developed into a slightly. It's evolved. The visual vocabulary has evolved. And so I'm excited to see that when I look at these pieces, and it just comes from, like being in the studio and working on these pieces and developing my technique. And so, yeah, I see there's I've kind of gotten more confident with the way I'm interplaying with my materials, with the paints, and bringing out the light.
Well, this color works really well.
Thank you.
Now let's go to the next piece.
And
Last Light.
This is called Last Light. Now I've kind of wandered away from Brockville. I've taken this piece in Halifax, but it's I rented a car with a friend and we drove around Halifax, around Nova Scotia, and this is this beautiful time of day. Right, it's twilight, sun's going down, and it was just hitting that grass at the front and hitting the clouds. And you can see the shadows later in the day because where that waterway is on the bottom right is in shadow. And so it's just this kind of perfect point in time.
It does work, and you get a lovely feeling of depth of field within the photograph.
Cool.
Do you want me to go back to it? Or?
Sure, let's go back for a moment. I just wanted to point out the road on the side, just as because in maybe not all of the pieces that we've looked at so far, but I'm interested in including a little piece of civilization.
I see.
In the pieces, sometimes hidden. In this case, you might not see it at first, but of course it's right there on the side. And kind of like there's something interesting to me about the way there's a collision kind of between nature and civilization.
And man is infringing on nature in a sense.
Definitely.
Yeah.
Definitely.
Okay, we'll go on to the next one.
Cool. This is called Close at Hand, and for me, it has a sort of moodiness to it that I get caught up in. I find that I'm kind of swimming in this somber mood, but like the earlier piece called Arrival, where the clouds are like kind of like. They feel like they're in motion. And again, going back to my interest in cinema and Super 8 film,
Oh
And
yes,
these
I know.
flares and scratches, right?
Yes, well but you did use Super 8, did you not? Or in some of your pieces or not?
Not in these pieces.
Not in these
I've shot
pieces, but
Super 8
prior to
films
that.
before.
Yes.
That I've shown at festivals and whatnot.
I
And
see,
so,
okay.
And of course, Super 8 films are the stuff that all of my childhood memories are captured on,
Yeah, of
right?
course. Yes.
So for me, I think that aesthetic is really coming out in my work. In all of this
quality, this quality that you got with that camera is coming with your contemporary cameras today.
That's right. It's
Yes.
interesting that, like we see, I think repeatedly in history and in design and in the history of art, that things that at one point were like an error, like the scratches on Super 8, later on become an aesthetic that's desired.
Yeah.
So then people are like, like jeans. Now we get jeans, we buy them
they're
ripped,
ripped,
right?
yes.
Or like fonts. Like we used to hate like the bitty area around a font, but now that's become an aesthetic. So it's interesting when the errors of the past become, something cool and contemporary and desired.
Yes.
In contemporary design.
In a contemporary.
Arena,
you can
right?
see it. You can see it everywhere. Okay, we've got another one here.
This is called Elevation, and I like this piece because it's kind of exploring more of the color fields so you can see again that there's a strong horizon line with this very rich sky color of the sky. This is taken out of a window as well, so we're getting a similar effect. The sun's hitting this glass.
Yeah, you get this feeling that you're in a car driving along, or as you
cool.
say, a train or something like that.
And in this case, it's a boat.
It's a boat, is it? Okay.
It's a giant boat I'm on.
Oh, well, that's nice. Hey.
And yeah, that is nice. And yeah, just at the end of the day, again, catching the lights, of course, always important, right? So at the end of the day, this magnificent, this brilliant, bright, overexposed sun is like sitting in the sky, just like blasting its rays through the window. And I just felt really seduced over to the window. I grabbed my camera, of course, and started taking these shots. And I like the interplay, right? So it's not just me shooting the sky and the sun, it's me shooting through the glass of this man-made object at the sun.
Yes.
And what that effect, there's an effect there, right? That wouldn't be produced otherwise.
Yes. Well, we'll look at another one.
Great. So this is a good one to follow up with because, again, we can see this exploration that I've started to feel more comfortable with in terms of the abstraction of the sky. And so if you cut off the clouds, it's like what's going on up there, right? It's just this kind of green field. It starts to make me, I always really like Mark Rothko, who is an abstract expressionist who paints in these color fields, right?
Yes.
And I started thinking, wow, like in a way, like there's three kind of fields there, right? There's the top, which is green, then there's the white kind of yellow clouds, and then there's the water at the bottom. And so it's sort of like three separate planes of color or content.
Yes. No, it works very well.
Cool.
And then we'll go to the next one.
Awesome. We're back in Nova Scotia.
Oh, we're in Nova Scotia now, are we?
And my friend who I was driving around with that day said, I want to take you to where I have this home that I've always dreamed of living in. And we drove up, and this is the home that he secretly wants. So one day we win the lottery, we'll buy it. Or maybe he'll buy it.
Can I visit?
Yeah, absolutely.
Okay.
Absolutely. It's pretty amazing looking. Like it really looked, like this amazing field, right? All around this little home. And if you look right close in there, you can see there's like a house and a little car and the driveway and the fence. And there's some smoke coming up. There's literally smoke coming up in this picture from the chimney. But again, it kind of like, I like how the house is overwhelmed by the surrounding nature. So it's overwhelmed by the yellow field, overwhelmed by this giant sky. Again, the sun looks overexposed and very powerful and resonant. And
this one is, now I'm not too sure where we are.
Yeah, sure. No, this is called Kingdom Come.
Kingdom Come. This is the last.
And it's interesting looking at these two because I used to be really afraid of color. I used to just do a lot of black and white work. I did a lot of pencil sketches. And now that I'm looking at all of these pieces together, I can see how really colorful they all are.
Oh, they're very colorful.
And so
yes.
we've just gone from something very, rich and yellow and green, and now we're over here into oranges and purples, and so yeah, it's like I'm really happy that I've kind of gotten into this exploration of rich colors, how it's become really important to me. And I think it also maybe is like when you're younger, like there's like this idea like we're interested in, I don't know if this is really true, but we're interested in simplified images like cartoons and big giant blocks of color, and so I kind of feel like all of this work has taken me back to where I came from, right? It took me back to where I grew up, and where I didn't even really appreciate where I came from at the time that I was growing up. And so it's like an exploration for me of like having the importance of where I came from kind of revealed to me.
Well, yes. Well, you're sort of going back to that and appreciating it now as opposed to when you were a child. You wanted to just leave, get out of there, and go to wherever.
That's right. I wanted to go to the city and get out of the nature.
Yes, well, of course. Now, you have the show coming up,
Yes.
and could you tell us again where it is, the location? And
Sure. It is the show. It's a solo show. It's my third solo in 3 years. And it is located at Muse Gallery. Now, Muse Gallery is at Yonge in Summerhill. It's a wonderful gallery, and it's located at 1230 Yonge Street. And so it's June 17th, which is next Friday.
next Friday. Fantastic.
And the show, Jay, airs or runs for 3 weeks.
For 3 weeks. Fantastic. And now you also have a website.
You can go to check out all of my work at stevnnhall.com, and I spell my name very specifically STEV''NN. That's Stephen, but my website, you just have to take the apostrophe out. So there it is, yeah, perfect.
Okay. And also, your images are at Muse Gallery.
Yes.
.ca.
That's right. Thank you.
And you also have a piece in Edward Day.
Yes, I have some pieces
.ca.
at Edward Day,
yes.
which is really wonderful.
Oh, fantastic.
And
it
yeah,
is.
and a number of pieces. I have pieces in Ottawa at the Terence Robert Gallery. I have pieces in Vancouver at the Elliott Lewis Gallery. So yeah, there's a number of pieces around
so
Canada.
that people just need to look up your name on the website, and they'll see all the different galleries that
That's right.
represent you.
They can
Yes.
also find that information on my website under exhibitions.
Okay. Well, wonderful. Well, thanks so much for coming in.
Thank
it was
you.
It was a lot of fun having you. And good night, everybody, and thank you for joining us.